I
pounds
think
at that time.
you learned much more in those 5 years in the startup than maybe 5 years in the university.
Absolutely. In fact, frankly speaking, I pretty much ignored university.
So you get out of the corporate life and you start thinking about how can I develop this for my family, for our farm.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Our first client, but also a client that actually made us uncover a lot of other problems in the sector, right? So for example, our first product was built for individual farms and things, right? Like how to help you grow better on a piece of land.
Like B2C, as you said
Exactly.
earlier.
Exactly. Because, we were farmers ourselves and we'd built it for ourselves.
Right.
Gourmet were farmers at a slightly larger scale because they were doing it at a corporate level, but effectively it was to help them grow better crops.
That's one of my questions. You're talking about AI. I was like, how does Farmdar utilize AI, maybe in a different way, to really monitor the crop and empower decision making in corporate farming, let's say?
Yes. So think of us as our base layer is data. So in order to make AI work, we need data.
Definitely.
Right?
A lot of data.
Tons of it. And actually the amazing thing is the timing right now is excellent.
Okay, so you think that B2C, it's not going to be your focus or possible in the upcoming
in Pakistan, no.
years? It's a country of 250 million. Oh, I'm like, okay. People don't know how populated is Pakistan.
Absolutely. And sadly, we are unable to produce today enough food to feed the 250 million people, right? But
There's a lot of food waste in Pakistan. My husband is in the food industry for a while, and the problem of Pakistan is like logistics, supply chain of food. And I think there is a big portion that just go to the garbage.
Yeah, I mean, some estimates put it as high as 40%.
Definitely. And so what's next for you in Farmdar? How you see it in the next few years, and what is still yet to build?
Yeah, a lot. Do you know where?
It's unlimited potential. Hello, I'm Sarah. I'm a Moroccan entrepreneur newly settled in Pakistan, and I'm in a journey to explore the tech ecosystem in Pakistan. And today I have Muhammed with me. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure to be
from
here.
Farmdar. So we're just talking off in the camera that like he spent 25 years in London and came back 3 years ago.
That's right.
To Pakistan to build some technology for agriculture, knowing that agriculture is one of the biggest sectors in Pakistan. It's like 37% of GDP, something like this.
Yeah, the crops plus livestock, if you add that up.
We're talking about plus 30% of the GDP, plus 42% of the workforce are working in agriculture. But before this, I would love to have a little introduction from your side of 2-3 minutes, like who is Muhammed Bukhari, what he's doing here, and then we'll go a little bit deeper in some questions about the AgriTech, the AI, the space tech. There's a lot of things to talk about today.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm Muhammed Bukhari. I'm basically the co-founder of Farmdar. My journey began actually in Lahore. I grew up in Lahore, and I got the opportunity to move to the UK, to London for university. I ended up spending just over 25 years over there in multiple different industries. And when COVID happened, that's where actually the Farmdar was born. And then Farmdar brought me back. Not just me, but my family as well, back to Pakistan. I've been here for the last 3 years.
So that was the trigger of coming back to Pakistan?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I would say that there were other things that, that were pulling us back. But really the main trigger was essentially Farmdar and building it. My time in London was quite interesting. Like my first job when I was still at university was actually at a startup.
As a startup.
And I ended up spending 5 years with them.
Right.
I saw, funding rounds. I was doing economics at university. I was pretty good at Excel. So quite quickly, the CFO realized that...
So we're talking about what year now? Because it was like the biggest bubble of startups also in London, and it's...
Yeah, this was around 2002, 2003. I forget now the precise years.
Which is a good time to be there, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, like it was a really good time to be there. towards the end of my time at that startup, the concept credit crunch was introduced in the UK. So I saw ups and downs, and we grew quite fast. When I joined, we were about 20 people. And when I left, we were close to 200. And
10x.
Yeah, in terms of headcount, like,
Right.
And the revenue growth was pretty phenomenal as well. But I think
what the startup was doing?
It was in the food and beverage space, like, so the really cool part for me was I learned that actually you could join a company and be handed a lot of freedom, responsibility to work on really important things.
And also how to build and scale and from 0 to 1.
But
I guess
the most resonating thought for me was like, look, I was still at university. I hadn't even graduated, right? And a CFO of a company was coming to me and saying, hey, like, there's a really important project here. I don't have time to do this, but I need you to grab this, and the consequence of this could be millions of pounds.
I think
at that time.
you learned much more in those 5 years in the startup than maybe 5 years in university.
Absolutely. In fact, frankly speaking, I pretty much ignored university. It was a fun place to be. It was quite a young company. I made friends for life, and I learned a lot. Including, how funding works and things like that. I've got to see 4 funding rounds really closely. And the last of them was actually...
This is a priceless experience, actually, for a young man or woman to be there.
Absolutely. And the first 3 were sort of VC funding rounds, and the last one was actually a private equity funding round. So, like, I saw the difference between them as well. And, like, so that was quite interesting. Towards the end of it, I got the opportunity to exit when the private equity firm came in. So, I took that opportunity. And at that point in time, I had been working very closely with teams from...
So you were a rich young man.
Well, let's put it this way.
Well.
Let's put it this way. Like, I had never anticipated I would come into that kind of money that early in my career, right? Like,
exactly.
So it was a pretty good situation to be in. I think the experience was more valuable, though.
Of course.
And my next jump, actually, or my next move, it sort of signified that as well. Like, during those funding rounds, I was working very closely with teams from Goldman, Rothschilds, McKinsey, because we were structuring this kind of PE round that we didn't know how to, and things. Worked quite closely with a team from McKinsey, and they kind of inspired me, and I ended up kind of applying and joining McKinsey in London. So spent roughly about 3.5 years there, and at that point really I needed a change in lifestyle. I just had my son, my family was growing, I was spending a lot of time away from home and things like that. So decided, okay, maybe I can look at the corporate sector or something like that, get out of consulting.
You didn't think at that time to fund something, like to jump on a project on your own, and it was not there yet.
Frankly speaking, had I been somewhere which had a more entrepreneurial undertone or vibe as a economy, as a city, I might have considered it. And I did consider it later on in my career, but I never considered building in London for some reason. Every time I sort of thought about starting something of my own, it always linked to Pakistan. And I think that's because Pakistan has a really entrepreneurial vibe to it. And I'll come to this definitely in more detail a bit later, but like kind of that's the origins of Farmdar. Like,
it was like, what was the inspiration behind Farmdar then? I'm like, what makes Muhammed take that leap?
Yeah, so the leap.
People, is it?
It was a number of things. Look, I think after 5 years at the startup, after 3.5 years at McKinsey,
corporate, I guess,
ended up
life.
at British Telecom for 10 years, so, and my experience there was also quite formative because I saw the growth of fiber optic broadband in the UK from scratch. My first assignment was to build a business case for it. My last assignment was general manager for broadband across the UK, so huge portfolio, large products.
Great.
And then COVID happened, and before COVID happened, I'd sort of been dabbling with entrepreneurship because my family background is farming.
Do you have any link with Pakistan? I mean, like, not any link, but I mean, like, you've been coming very often. Were you having that view of like what's happening in the entrepreneurial ecosystem there? What was the situation? Because you spent like 25 years, it's a long time. We can really get disconnected from the country, and in Morocco it's the same. Like they are all abroad, and and especially it's countries that you live 5 years, it's already changing a lot, because it's a very rapid growth and rapid change in economies.
Yeah, I mean, we were very connected with Pakistan as a family. Like, I would come every year to visit, right? At least once. I was connected to people in Pakistan. I didn't know much about the startup ecosystem, but my family background in Pakistan is farming.
Right.
So I always felt that actually we could do more with our farms, because they were not being run in a, you could say, optimized fashion using technology or anything like that, right? So really, when COVID happened, number one, my job became really easy, because everyone wanted the best broadband at home, and people wanted multiple lines at home. So literally, without me doing anything, without my team's kind of skills or anything like that, the industry had shifted. So I had a lot of time to think for the first time in a long time.
Right.
And that's where, for our own farms, we developed some products which we believed would help us. And then we saw very quickly that they were...
So you get out of the corporate life and you start thinking about, how can I develop this for my family, for our farm?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So our first product was actually built for my farms.
Okay. What was it?
It was basically a satellite-based product. And drone, actually, at the very beginning, we bought some drones and we kind of flew them over our farm and things like that. But we soon realized that we can't scale drones. So it was a satellite and drone-based product that looked at...
So you take images, I guess, and you try to analyze the images using AI? Well, I guess it right or no?
At that point, it was more sort of remote sensing than AI, because we were doing it at a very tiny scale. And essentially, it was about taking images and kind of deriving insights out of them using remote sensing. And even at that basic level, we found a lot of benefit, So we knew the right time to water, we knew the right time to apply nutrition, we knew when, our trees or our crops were in stress, we knew kind of what their health was like on a regular basis. So just better management. It allowed us to do better management. When we saw the results, it gave us confidence that actually, hey, if we can do this on our farm, imagine multiplying this across all of Pakistan, right? Because we were pretty much you could say, an average farm for Pakistan. And then we thought, hey, if we can see these results here, imagine what we could do for the average farmer in Pakistan.
For a bigger scale.
Exactly. And there's loads of scale in Pakistan. I mean, Punjab alone has 75 million acres of arable land.
Right? I know.
So that's
how
where
long
really
this experimentation happened, and when you decided to say, okay, how we can bring it to the world? Because not only in Pakistan.
Yeah, so from us starting experimentation to us deciding to launch something in the market was almost a year. You have to be patient in agriculture. The average...
To see the results.
Yeah, exactly, right? There's no the time to value in agriculture. Proving time to value actually requires 6 months, because an average crop cycle will be at least 6 months, right? So when we got confidence that it works. Luckily, at the same time, a big company here in Pakistan called Gourmet Foods, they're a retail food chain, they were venturing into corporate farming and growing garlic and maize and things like that. They threw
Pakistani company?
Yes. Okay. Well-known Pakistani company, Gourmet Foods. They have this orange logo. It's quite
private owned, I guess?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And just sheer luck, they threw a tender in the market right about the same time when we were considering going to market, and we applied to it. We won it.
So they are the best proof of concept to
do.
I'm not proof of concept, but more than first client maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Our first client, but also a client that actually made us uncover a lot of other problems in the sector, right? So, for example, our first product was built for individual farms and things, right? Like how to help you grow better on a piece of land.
Like B2C, as you said
earlier.
Exactly.
Because, we were farmers ourselves and we'd built it for ourselves.
Right.
Gourmet were farmers at a slightly larger scale because they were doing it at a corporate level, but effectively it was to help them grow better crops. But when we started working with them and when they saw what we could do, their CEO invited us and basically said, look, this is kind of like a passion project for me, but I have a sugar mill in my portfolio, in my kind of group. And we've acquired it 2 years ago. We've had one phenomenal season, one really bad season. And I don't have any business intelligence on why. And I'm not getting the right answers from my team either. I get like conflicting views and things. So how can you help me with like sort of business intelligence? And like, that's where our product Crop Scan was born.
Amazing.
Crop Scan is essentially, we take, it's a macro level product. So we cover either a very vast area, millions of acres, a province, a country, or even continents, right? Okay. And we use...
Through satellites.
Yeah. And the basic ingredient of it is satellite imagery, but we've built a layer of AI and software on top. We can tell you exactly what crops are growing where, when were they planted, how are they being harvested. In the case of some crops like sugarcane and maize, we can tell you what breed or variety of crop is growing there. We can predict yields and do things like that. So if you want intel or the lay of the land or like intelligence about, okay, exactly what is happening in this area, Crop Scan is your kind of product. That product has grown kind of dramatically. That year with Gourmet, we covered 60,000 acres. And literally that was all we did in a 12-month time frame. 3 years later now, we've crossed 500 million acres globally in terms of coverage with that product, right?
Crazy.
So thank you, Gourmet. Zubair Chattha for showing us
this kind of partnership that really changed everything for a startup, because you've been starting small, but still like when you operate with like such big corporates, it just changed, game changing for you as a company, and also help you to grow. I don't know if you raised any money, but
yes, we've raised 2 rounds. So our first round was sort of soon after we got Gourmet on board. We raised we called it a seed round back then. Recently, or well, about 6 months ago.
Locally raised or international?
Indus Valley Capital and Atif led our round. We then had investors from all over the place. So we had investors from the US, investors from Singapore, investors from Dubai, and also a couple of local Czechs. Our second round was raised about 6 months ago. Atif, who was our existing anchor investor, he doubled down, so he reinvested. We got our round was led by Moment Ventures from Palo Alto. It was their first investment outside the US. So, we were quite pleased about that. And it was at a time where, frankly, it was quite difficult to raise funds. I mean, it still is. But we felt that hopefully that provides some kind of positivity to the ecosystem here. So we've raised those 2 rounds, roughly about $2.5 million, not huge amounts.
In the 2 rounds, okay.
In the 2 rounds combined. But frankly, that's the beauty of Pakistan. Our thesis always was that Pakistan would be an amazing lab for agriculture. There's some kind of native challenges here. And if we can address those challenges, then it's kind of like training at altitude. We can go to places elsewhere in the world and our technology would kind of apply a lot easier in those places.
And I guess since like you're not having hardware parts, so it's only software, so it has to be not a lot of cash burn thing. So you can just be a bit positive and
I mean, it
live more from your revenues than raising capital.
Look, Pakistan allows us to be lean. Frankly speaking, the talent arbitrage in terms of cost per talent is pretty good in Pakistan. But I think more important than that, it's a great place to experiment and build things. We found that actually for agriculture, it's a perfect lab. All sorts of crops are grown here that are staple crops across the world.
Right.
Land parcel sizes are very small. So if we can create AI that works on really small mosaic size parcels, it works really well in places like Brazil, where one field is 2,000 hectares, right? It becomes really easy. And also, the talent in Pakistan is insane.
That's one of my questions. You're talking about AI. I was like, how does Farmdar utilize AI, maybe in a different way, to really monitor the crop and empower decision making in corporate farming, let's say?
Yes. So think of us as our base layer is data. So in order to make AI work, we need data.
Definitely.
Right?
A lot of data.
Tons of it. And actually, the amazing thing is the timing right now is excellent for Earth observation. So, you hear a lot about kind of SpaceX launching satellites and things like that. The majority of these satellites are actually launched and they're pointing at Earth and they're capturing information about Earth. So for the first time, there is literally reams, tons and tons and tons, terabytes and of data available on a daily basis about Earth observation. Secondly, finally, AI and compute has come at a level where you can actually turn this data into insights relatively easily, right? Before, what would take maybe 6 months to kind of process now can be done in a matter of hours, right? So the timing is right in terms of technology and where technology has got to actually build a layer of AI on top. Right. So what we do is our data sources, 80% of our data tends to be from satellites. Our satellites are from two sources, open source and commercial. Open source is places like NASA and the European Space Agency. So we have built pipelines, if you like, that can automatically capture imagery from NASA or capture imagery from the European Space Agency. Similarly, we work with providers like Planet, Airbus, Maxar. These are commercial providers that provide you on-demand imagery and imagery at kind of like higher resolutions. So depending on the use case, we can either just get open source imagery or we can go to commercial providers. 20% of our data is linked to machines. So John Deere is a good example of this. They have harvesters and planters. They're quite intelligent. So they're GPS enabled. They're connected to satellites. Every sort of square foot of their movement is tracked. So we can pull that information into our kind of tech stack and we can build layers of things on top.
Actually, my question was about the idea of having different region. Now I would talk earlier also off camera about Brazil, and so the data will be analyzed differently because it's different environment, different climate, different type of land. How the AI make this difference, and also how you make your, I guess you have LLMs that learn.
Yeah. So we have to localize.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
kind of a localized AI decision making or AI analysis.
I mean, so it really depends on.
It's a thing or no?
It is. I mean, it depends on the use case, but for the most part, we have to localize a little bit. You could call it fine tuning of models, like retraining of models. But what we find is that actually we try to achieve very high benchmarks and accuracy for our most important use cases. So for example, on crop scan, we try to achieve more than 95% accuracy on crop detection. In quite a lot of cases, we actually contract and we have service level agreements and service level guarantees on what kind of accuracy we're able to provide. And Sarah, that accuracy is not a machine telling me this is how accurate it is. It's not a confusion matrix. It's people testing on the ground, right? So people will go and actually
just compare this with the reality then.
Exactly, because all of our information that we provide them is geolocated, right? So you can actually pinpoint what our results are saying, and people go there and test it. Even in a very challenging place like Pakistan, where there's multiple crops, huge diversity of crops, very small parcel sizes of lands, people grow 8 things in an acre, right? We still achieve over 95% accuracy.
Amazing. And what are the challenges that you encountered in introducing such advanced technology for Pakistan? Because I know that Pakistan agriculture was really the old date kind of agriculture. How you're just bringing this very advanced technology or the last technologies. What were the challenges that you faced in Pakistani market first, and then we'll talk about the global market?
Yeah, I think, look, if I talk about the Pakistani market first, because we were B2C to begin with, the first thing we realized was internet access isn't there in rural areas.
Definitely.
Right? So,
and even digital literacy is not there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for us, the first step was internet access, because even to make someone digitally literate, you have to show them what digital is, right? We plotted, for example, we got quite confused by it because we felt that actually the messaging was a little bit kind of the messaging didn't really match the coverage that we found in rural areas. So we plotted kind of mobile phone towers that had at least 3G, where WhatsApp and things like that can be used and things. We found Punjab had 20% coverage in rural areas. Sindh had 10% coverage in rural areas, right? Like, so actually my whole market gets massively squeezed, right? Because of that.
Definitely.
So that was one of the reasons why we pivoted to B2B quite quickly, because we realized actually, this is going to take a lot of infrastructure and a lot of, lobbying and things like that to kind of build up to a level where we can actually even take this technology to farmers. The second thing was we realized very quickly that there were large organizations who had been working with farmers for generations and wanted to help the farmers increase yield, wanted to help the farmers improve their lives. And they were classic partners for us. So why don't we keep to what we're best at, which is technology and innovation, and we go to these companies that have these inroads with farmers, have these long-standing relationships with farmers.
Right.
So the partnership model actually started to make a lot more sense, right? So we pivoted to B2B, and that's how we ended up sort of like signing on, large companies who were either agri-businesses themselves or were allied to agri-businesses. And they took our technology to the hands of the farmer, basically.
Okay, so you think that B2C, it's not going to be your focus or possible in the upcoming
in Pakistan, no.
years?
Definitely not in Pakistan. What's working really well for us in Pakistan is
so we have to push the government to digitalize the rural areas.
Well, look, we're digitalizing the rural areas anyway. At a pretty fast pace. So we have already 350,000 farmers, their land boundaries, their biodata and things like that digitalized already.
Right.
Our run rate is around 200,000 farmers a year at the moment. And we will expand that. We will increase that run rate. That's happening anyway. But we are not going directly to those 250 or 350,000 farmers. We actually go B2B2C. And that B2B2C model is actually working really well. Can
you explain?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll give you an example of an actual kind of engagement we have on at the moment. So Corteva Agri-Sciences is a really important customer for us, not just in Pakistan, but globally. We're working with them in multiple countries. We have a very close relationship with them. We've now been working with them for 3 years. They have, millions of farmers in Pakistan that buy their seeds and their crop protection products, so their pesticide products.
Right.
They have teams on the ground that go and engage with these farmers on an ongoing basis, on a day-to-day basis, right? What we have done is provided our platform to Corteva so that their agronomists can use that, go and engage with farmers, show farmers what the state of their kind of crops are, and actually advise them based on our platform. So the farmer actually ends up getting the benefit of my platform, but it's delivered through Corteva. And that model, I think, works extremely well because you achieve the end result of helping the farmer improve, but I can remain a technology and software company, and Corteva, who have hundreds of years of history and hundreds of years of R&D and know the farmer really well and have built products that actually help the farmer, they're able to go and take those products to farm. So that model is what we see actually being really successful.
And the government cannot be included in this kind of approach, like Farmdar, government farmers, something like this?
It most certainly can. I think agriculture is becoming an important topic to the public sector.
Food safety, especially
yeah,
with a country that's like 250 million, for those who don't know, from the MENA region. Sometimes people, like even Morocco, like it's a country of 250 million. Oh, I'm like, okay. People don't know how populated is Pakistan.
Absolutely. And sadly, we are unable to produce today enough food to feed the 250 million people, right? And also, sadly, the potential is for us to produce way more food than just the 250 million people. We could be a breadbasket for the region.
Exactly. Especially we have the GCC countries that are really suffering from... There's a lot of food waste in Pakistan. My husband is in the food industry for a while, and the problem of Pakistan is like logistics, supply chain of food. And I think there is a big portion that just go to the garbage.
Yeah, I mean, some estimates put it as high as 40%, right? So, number one, a lot of this food wastage happens at the farm gate, because people are not employing the right methods and technology to actually grow.
So we come back to your problematic, actually, that
Absolutely.
you're trying to solve.
Exactly. And like that's why we launched the product for my farms to begin with in the first place, right? Because we wanted to grow good quality produce. A lot of the wastage is also in the supply chain, but the majority of it is at the farm gate, right? So look, I think going back to your question, the public sector, farming is a priority. Agriculture is a priority for the public sector. So I think we're moving in the right direction.
Great. I would love also to explore how a Pakistani startup in AgriTech scale in an international level. So how this scaling come is like people approach you, you approach them, you've seen a potential in some countries. What happened to like Farmdar step up? Like you were doing good business in Pakistan, I guess, like since 3 years something, which congratulations for that.
Thank you.
What was the next step for you and how you explore the international market and how you choose your next market?
So, Sarah, I think right from the very start, our thinking was that Pakistan would be a great lab. And if we can build good products in Pakistan, we should be able to copy paste them in other geographies or other markets where agriculture is like a big part of the economy.
Exactly.
Right? So, of course, with that in mind, Brazil is one such market, right? And we got the opportunity to sort of demonstrate our work in Brazil and enter into a sort of partnership, like a kind of like a JV. And we set up Agrom AI in Brazil about a year and a half ago. Agrom AI is a fantastic product. We basically use, again, satellites, machine data, and AI to create risk assessments for farmers. And that is used by banks and insurers and the public sector to actually help price the right incentives to farmers. So banks can price loans correctly, insurers can price their policies correctly. The public sector can design the correct incentives for farmers and essentially.
And I guess in Brazil it's more digitalized. I'm like the farming sector.
It is.
And
it is compared to Pakistan. It definitely is. However, look, farming everywhere is. It's very interesting, right? Like, look, number one, farming is mostly an outdoor activity, right?
Yes, definitely.
And that basically means that most people who are involved in farming, they have to deal with the weather, they have to deal with unpredictability and things like that. So there are a lot of things across the world that are very similar for farmers. When you speak to farmers in Pakistan and you speak to farmers in Brazil, guess what? Climate, weather, water, all of these conversations are kind of like same problems, exactly. The second thing is similar to Pakistan, but it's changing in Pakistan. The population of people involved in farming tend to be a lot older.
Right.
So by definition, they're not sort of like super keen to adopt technology, right? And we've seen that problem in places like even Brazil, right? Your average farmer will be over 60 years old and things like that. He's used to John Deere now because he's been working with like a mechanical harvester, which is quite intelligent for maybe 10 years. Or more, but satellites and satellite-based technology, they're still skeptical about it.
Right, right.
Similarly, if you look at Pakistan right now, there's a younger generation coming up, who are inheriting or maybe taking on farming from their parents. Exactly. So we see kind of Pakistan probably in a place where once the newer generation comes in more is actually probably even better placed, like somewhere like Brazil for adoption of digital technologies because it's younger people, right?
Exactly.
So Brazil, yes, digitally they're a little bit more, I'd say fairly more advanced, but we see Pakistan bridging that gap in the coming years.
And you told me like it's something about with the government. It's like a partnership with the government and then to the corporate farming in Brazil.
Yeah, it's not really a partnership with the government. Like it's more the public sector is a customer for us, right?
Okay,
so
got
we provide a platform, we provide information. They use that information to be able to design incentives for farmers, essentially. Pretty much every country in the world, they create incentives for farmers, whether that's in terms of discounts on loans, whether that's in terms of subsidies on kind of pricing and things like that. And these tend to be very large amounts pretty much anywhere in the world, including in Pakistan, right? So the dissemination of those incentives to the right place at the right time is really important. We help the public sector do that.
Definitely. And so what's next for you in Farmdar? How you see it in the next few years and what is still yet to build?
A lot. Where
It's unlimited potential.
Yeah, I think, look, it's we have to focus. I think agriculture is such a large area. It's a vast area. It's very easy to try to boil the ocean in agriculture. So we try to stay extremely focused. We target our markets really carefully. For us, our crop scan product, and particularly our sugar miller segment, is a global segment. So, we roughly work with about 30% of Pakistan's sugar industry. Thailand is an extremely important market for us. We've established an office there about 6 months ago. We are hiring aggressively in Thailand. I see maybe the Thailand business, frankly, becoming bigger than Pakistan in 2 years. We are working with the top 2.
Is it localized, the Thailand agriculture, or it's like scattered in all the country also?
For us, we see Thailand as an single market.
Okay.
So, with satellites, the benefit of scale comes in. So frankly, it could be anywhere in Thailand. We're really not worried about that. We can cover pretty much any corner of Thailand. We currently are working with the 2 largest millers in Thailand. One of them, the top one, they're actually quite an international organization themselves.
Right.
They have interests in Thailand, Indonesia, Australia. We see our CropScan platform, particularly the use of it for sugar mills, to be a global play. We're already working in Southeast Asia. We're working in Africa. We're working, of course, in Pakistan. We are also expanding in LATAM in places like Guatemala and Colombia. On that front, we see really any country where the growing of sugar cane or sugar beet is important to that economy. We are essentially experts in that field. So
you are the only one in the world?
We're not the only ones. We compete with lots of people, and frankly, we like.
How you stand out then?
Look, we try to punch above our weight. I think if I give you an example of Southeast Asia, there's an Indian company called Cropin. They're 15 years older than us.
Right.
They do something similar to us.
Right.
However, we compete with them on product depth. So in the sugar industry, we have created a lot of depth in our product. So we have created a lot of expertise in our product.
Specialized of specialized of specialized.
Yes, exactly. So an example of this is we can use space technologies to determine varieties of sugarcane growing on the ground remotely without you having to set foot on the ground, right?
Got it.
That's a very hard thing to do. We spent a lot of money, time,
Research.
effort, and R&D on building this, right?
Okay.
So, when we go to millers and they test that product and they engage with us to try and understand how we build it, they understand that we understand sugar milling and sugar growing really well.
Right.
We've managed to sort of drive business in economies or in geographies where Cropin are really entrenched that way through product depth. There are other places, for example, where our scale, because we are building in Pakistan, we have a natural advantage in terms of cost. We compete on cost in certain economies. So, for example, there's a company called EOS. They're probably 20 years older than us. They have their own satellites. They're based out of Mountain View, California. So they're a Silicon Valley company. We compete against them as well. And we compete because they're relatively expensive. And when they go to a client's only able to cover, let's say, a limited area in a given budget. We will go and we will cover half the country for them in that same budget because actually, we have built our technology to scale better, right? And so that's how we compete with EOS. Frankly, as an organization, we like to punch above our weight, and therefore we look at every single market we're in. We look at what the competitive landscape is. We think very hard about what our competitive strategy needs to be. We think very hard about what our go-to-market strategy needs to be. And so, look, we're... In sugar, we're expanding globally. There are other segments that we serve as well. I mentioned Corteva earlier. So seed companies and crop protection companies, they're a really important segment for us.
Right.
They tend to be extremely close to farmers. So that's also one way we can achieve our vision, which is to actually help farmers grow better.
And how, I just had this in mind about IoT with Farmdar. IoT used in agriculture and Farmdar. How you see this relationship building on the long run and how it can help have a better decision, have better data maybe?
Absolutely.
IoT is Internet of Things for people who don't know what is it.
So, we still believe that the best sensor in the ground that you can put is a plant, right? Because we can actually detect a lot about what is going on by detecting the behavior of that plant, right? And what I mean by behavior of the plant is essentially we can use satellite imagery to understand the reflectance of foliage on that plant, right? So if the plant is stressed, we know. If the plant requires water, we know. If the plant requires nutrition, we know.
So you mean there is no need of these kind of sensors?
Some of these sensors are very valuable because they can give you high precision information, particularly in controlled environments. But when you're talking about large scale, open outdoor agriculture,
you cannot put sensors everywhere.
Exactly. I mean, the best sensor might have a range of, let's say, 1 acre. If you're growing on 100,000 acres, how many sensors are you going to put, right? So we treat plants like sensors. We are exploring.
That's very nice. Like plant is the sensor.
Yeah, it's.
I love it.
We think it's the best sensor, frankly. Like we are exploring, however, some IoT devices. So recently we did a partnership with a Dutch company called AgriCorporates. They have a NIR, near infrared based soil sensor.
Okay.
It's handheld and you essentially point it at the soil and shoot, and it tells you all of this information about the soil, like what the nutrient values are, what the kind of condition of the soil is, what the structure of the soil is, and things like that. We will actually be deploying that device in Pakistan with FFC, which is Fauji Fertilizer Company. So it's a three-party partnership.
I just visited their factory between Islamabad and Lahore last week.
Excellent.
It's like quite interesting what they are doing.
Absolutely. I mean, again, they're one of those organizations that are a huge brand in Pakistan. They work really closely with farmers. What we love about them is that actually their North Star metric with us is how can we increase farmer yield? So it's not about selling more bags of fertilizer or anything like that. Their thinking is really, if you can put more disposable income in the pocket of the farmer, he's going to come and buy more of my products, right? So we absolutely love that. I think it gives us a challenge as well. Can my technology really increase yield? And when a customer comes on board and they challenge you to kind of work on something and partner on something like that, it really drives us to do the best we can.
I have a question just out of this. I don't know if the corporate farming, they still burn their fields. It's horrible. And we're what is that? It's creating a lot of pollution. Just 2 days ago, I was coming back from Islamabad and just you cannot see the road. This is a huge problem for me in Pakistan, and it's a real environmental phenomena that has to stop it somehow. I'm talking to you because I think you know everything about agriculture now here.
Sarah, this is a topic that frankly I'm personally extremely affected by. If you ask me, do I have any regrets moving back to Pakistan after 25 years in England? This is my one single regret. On a personal level, look, my older son, he was asthmatic when he was young. We forgot about it because he sort of it got better over time. My first year moving back in Pakistan, it got so bad that he got pneumonia. And it was during this time when there's crop burning going on and things like that. I mean, it's not the single contributor of bad air, but in certain seasons, it actually makes it unbearable, right? Look, I'll put this out there. We have tried.
Please. I want to have your point of view.
As Farmdar, me personally, I have tried really hard to get people together who can come together and do something about this problem. Me personally and Farmdar, we would love to help solve this problem. I think there's ways to solve this problem, but there's not enough collective appetite across the industry to want to solve it, frankly, is what I see,
The will is not there yet, I guess.
Unfortunately, it's not. And I think in an environment where the will is not there, I think our public sector, our regulators, our lawmakers, it's their responsibility then to either set incentives or penalize.
So what will be the solution from your point of view?
I think there's look, there's some short-term solutions, and then there's some solutions which will take some time, right? So if you look at why, let's say, bad air or smog happens, urban planning is part of it. Quality of fuel is part of it. Industrial zones being close to cities is part of it.
Just
population.
The agriculture part.
The agriculture part, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, should be easy to solve.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you an example of this.
Right.
There's a satellite provider called Planet. They cover the whole Earth every day.
Right.
Okay. So if there's a farmer burning a field, you have the ability to track it every day, right? It's very easy to pinpoint areas where this is a risk even before it happens, because it happens when people switch crops, right? So if there's a rice farmer and he wants to very quickly kind of prepare his land for potatoes, he's going to burn the rice
it's the fastest
residue.
way.
Yeah, it's the fastest and the cheapest way, right? So we know when rice is going to be ready. We know when rice is getting harvested.
You know exactly what is planted in this field.
Look, with satellites, you can zoom into the size of a pizza box.
Oh my God.
On Earth
okay.
now. Okay.
And see what is in the pizza. Like mushroom or...
So,
okay, that's very interesting.
If you wanted to, you could literally create perfect avoidance of crop burning, right? I think it's unfortunately, I don't see a cohesive kind of collective response to this. Frankly, there are some even corporates that are in the sector that are essentially connected to farmers who are doing this, that could benefit from this by, let's say, claiming that they are reducing emissions as a result of, encouraging or preventing farmers from doing this. So there are organizations that I would appeal to who could come forward and actually do something more about this, right? But we remain ready to help in any way we can.
Okay, got it. What are the still potential to develop other agri-tech solution in Pakistan?
There's a huge potential.
Two or three things that maybe new entrepreneur or first-time entrepreneurs can think of and work on, that the biggest maybe pain points that exist.
Look, there are a huge amount of opportunities in agriculture in Pakistan. Frankly speaking, I would love it if more people enter the market doing exactly what we're doing, right? I would even like that. And the reason for that, Sarah, is that it's such a large market. When we go and talk to local, companies in agriculture here, they're not product aware. So we first have to make them product aware. That
education.
Exactly. So it's a long sales cycle, right? If there's others like us, they will make the whole market more product aware. That basically means they will, educate the market more. And then actually that allows us to expand the size of the market, right? Even in kind of remote sensing and AI in agriculture, we would love it if there was more people. The one thing I would say is that, like you mentioned supply chain earlier, the agriculture supply chain in Pakistan is fairly broken. So, and I'm not talking about sort of the retail supply chain. I'm even sort of going a couple of steps beyond that, right? Or before that, upstream. Look at sugar season in Pakistan, for example. When sugarcane is getting harvested, you see these long lines of tractors with these huge trolleys at the back overflowing with sugarcane, 200-300 in a queue.
Okay.
An intelligent queuing mechanism would just get rid of that problem.
Right.
And
Got it.
the great thing is that I've come across some startups who are actually thinking about these things, so it's super encouraging. I think people are looking around them, they're identifying these problems, and they're going to try to solve them. Another really big area is our farmers don't have access to institutional or kind of formal sources of finance in Pakistan. It's roughly around a $14 billion gap every year. It's the
same problem in all emerging markets. Same thing in Africa. Same thing in but it comes from digitalizing those rural areas also.
It does. And look, companies like ours, startups like ours, we're doing that anyway. And if you believe that there's something like 8 or 10 million farmers in Pakistan, we believe that we can kind of like address that if we're going at cruising altitude in 3 or 4 years. We will digitalize that.
And I will zoom out on your point of view as a Pakistani, lived abroad for a long time, coming back to Pakistan. How do you evaluate the tech ecosystem in general, not only in agriculture, but the tech ecosystem? What is the dynamic for you?
I'm blown away by the talent here. And the classic example of that, Sarah, is I'm not a technical person. My background is sort of commercial, business. Strategy. Exactly. Like I cannot really write code. I can do VBA in Excel, but that's about it. My other two co-founders are not technical either. Muzaffar is from advertising. Ibrahim is a farmer. We've managed to build a deep tech company in Pakistan without a CTO. We got a fantastic CTO on board about 6 months ago. Before that, this was all built by really young, highly talented people. 80% of Farmdar right now is under 30. Our technical lead is 25 or 26 years old. All in Pakistan.
Great.
I mean, Brazil is we have a team of roughly about 15 people there as well. But we have never built anything from a third party. Like we've always kind of built everything ourselves in-house.
Internally, right.
And practically everything other than Brazil, which is for Brazil, is built out of Pakistan. So
amazing.
The talent here has just blown my mind. It's absolutely phenomenal. I think the other thing is the work ethic of folks is just insane. Like, my team, they take so much ownership that it's actually a pleasure to work with them. How did you
build this? Because I don't have the same experience. I've been like 4 or 5 months that I'm here in Pakistan. And I feel there is a gap of work ethic. Speaking of it, but I think that you built a special culture also.
I think, look, for us, we led from the front. So frankly, all founders and everyone, we work really hard. We don't leave any stones unturned. So that culture does disseminate from the top down, right?
Of course.
But I think the important thing is that we realized early we were not the right people to make critical calls about technical things. So we created space and kind of
that freedom
and also sort of autonomy and authority for people to make those decisions. And that basically meant that it created a lot of ownership, right? So then, okay, I trust you to make this.
You are responsible of this.
It's then in your hands, right? Maybe it was the fact that we were non-technical founders building a highly technical thing that led to that culture. But I would love for you to come to the office and speak to some of the folks. But
would love to, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you have a lot of technical stuff.
We do.
Most of them.
Yeah, about 70% of Farmdar is still quite technical. I think our growth in headcount is coming on the commercial side now.
Right.
We're hiring our first sales teams and things like that. I think the work ethic and the talent of people in Pakistan, especially my team, is just phenomenal. I've been blown away.
Congratulations on that. Actually, I think it's not something easy to achieve, but it's good that you have achieved it within the first 3 years of the startup.
Yes, I mean, we still have a lot to do, right?
Of course.
We're still...
It's a forever growing journey.
Absolutely.
I will finish with a rapid fire with you, Muhammed. It's one word to describe the startup scene in Pakistan.
Friendly.
AgriTech in 2025. Hype or hope?
Hope.
And favorite productivity hack of you as a founder?
I would say AI agents.
Oh, that's gonna be my next question. AI tool you can't live without. Currently.
Okay, currently I would say it's an agent that I use on spreadsheets.
Okay, so you are already trained your agent. I still haven't used my agent yet. I mean, I have to take some time to use it for my businesses. 3 tools or apps do you swear by as a founder?
I love Asana as my. I'm a new user, but I absolutely love that.
Asana is like the project management thing.
Yes, yes. I tend to travel a lot because we have kind of offices in APAC as well as Brazil and things like that. It just helps me stay on top of stuff. So I'm famously known at Farmdar to kind of use it a lot and expect people to use it a lot.
And word of advice for wannabe entrepreneurs?
Just do it. Don't
Like
think
the
too
Nike
long.
thing.
Yeah. Don't think too much about whether it's the right time or the right idea and things like that. Like action and execution is way more important.
Definitely. Anything
jump
you would
in.
like maybe to share that we haven't the opportunity to share earlier in our discussion?
Yeah, like I think I would just like to kind of put a message out there that there's a lot of people in the world now. If you look at where the world is headed in sort of like 2050, it's going to be extremely difficult for that many people to live on Earth with the right amount of food, because the way that we produce food today is not sustainable.
Definitely.
And I would just encourage people to sort of like find out more about that, because I think it's our duty to do something about it now.
Before it's too late.
Yes, because if we continue the way we are, in order to produce all of that food, we will end up affecting climate so much that it's going to destroy major things about the earth, right? It's a topic that I think everyone should be kind of well versed on. Like, it's a really important topic. So I'll leave that thought out.
Yeah, but especially in emerging market, people are not aware at all. I'm like the mass population is like, they don't think of this, and it's a real problem. It's tomorrow. It's today even.
We have to do something today to save tomorrow.
Thank you, Muhammed. Thank you for your sharing. Thank you for all the deep insight you shared with us. I hope that it will going to be really relevant for people who are interested in agri-tech, and also for maybe policymakers. And it's a push also to create another narrative and build a new narrative for our region. So thank you very much for your insight.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Sarah.
Thank you.